On the bottom of Kuf Yuda Aleph Amid Beis, the third of the wide lines. Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri in the Mishnah asked, why is it that a chereshes, if she became a chereshes subsequent to the marriage, is yotza, va'isha nischaresh eno motzi. You can give a get to a chereshes, but not to a cheresh cannot give a get. And the Gemara now vacillates about how to understand Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Iboilahu. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, ish pshitale, ish hakami boile. According to this tzad in the Gemara Suffolk, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri understood very well that if a man becomes a cheresh, he cannot divorce his wife. That was pshita. And in that sense, they're unanimously on the same wavelength. Even the Chachamim are modeh that a cheresh cannot deliver a get to his wife. But here's where Rabbi Yochanan Nuri vacillated, according to this first side in the Gemara. Why did the Chachamim say that in the case of a woman who became a chereshes, she can receive her get? She doesn't have das. Just like a Baal, if he became a cheresh, she cannot deliver a get because he doesn't have das. So to an Isha cannot receive a get if she became a chereshes because she doesn't have das. O Dilma, Isha pshitale. The other possibility is just the opposite. That in the case where she became a chereshes, it was pasha to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri that she could receive her get even though she doesn't have das. And once again, this would be a unanimous opinion. But ish kami baile, the suffix was, and this is what bothered Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, why couldn't the cheresh be megarish, even though he has no das? Just like an isha is miskareshes shalom midato, so to an isha be able to be megarish, meaning I think on a deeper level, what the Gemara is trying to imply is that cheresh is sort of like a midway between a bardas and a shota. So he has at least a das klusha, some sort of weak secondary level of das. The Gemara has a lot to say about that. In fact, according to one day, the Gemara, a cheresh goes in and out. Sometimes he does have das, sometimes he doesn't. So in any event, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said that if, as far as an isha is concerned, she can receive a get even though she's a chereshes, and that mixas das is sufficient, so too, in the case of a cheresh, she also has das kalusha, and that should be enough for him to deliver a get. And in this case, according to the second side, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is a mekil, in contrast to the Chacham. Toshma, midika amrule. From the fact that Chachamim responded to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri when he raised the question, and what was their response? Ein dome ha'ish hamagaresh leisha miskareshes isha yotes lirtzona v'shalo lirtzona. A woman can be compelled against her will to accept the get, the ish. However, in the case of a ish, eno motzi el lirtzona. He requires das. Nobody could force him and compel him to divorce his wife. From the fact that the Chachamim responded to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and differentiated between an ish and an isha, it would seem that they're coming to explain the reasoning why a man cannot be megaresh like a woman cannot be miskareshes shalom midas. But in the case of a woman, we said that she is miskareshes shalom midas. Mamina ish kami boile. From the fact that the Chachamim responded to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri's question by putting all the focus on ish, that an ish is different because we require ritzono. You see that it was Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri who had an idea that even a cheresh should be able to give a divorce. The way we explained it, because he has a miktas das. The Gemara says, Adrab. On the contrary, if we read the next part of the Mishnah, we can come to the opposite conclusion. From the fact that Chacham said to Rabbi Yochanan Nuri that even in the case of a normal woman who became a chereshes, she's yotze beget. Like, for example, that chereshes that was married off by a father, and that's called Kiddushay Torah, like a katana, about whom Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgedo was made that she can be yotze beget. Ishma mina isha kami boile. From the fact that Rabbi Yochanan's answer from the Chachamim was such, he could prove that his question was about a woman who became a chereshes. How could she be a chereshes? She doesn't have a das. And therefore, the Chachamim brought and invoked the testimony of Rabbi Yochanan Gudgedo to prove that with regard to a woman, she could be misgareshes even though she's a chereshes. So from the ratio, we come to the conclusion that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri's suffix revolved around the ish. From the Sefer, we come to the opposite conclusion, that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri's problem was about the isha. So we have l'chora stira in the Mishnah itself. And therefore, the Gemara now is going to take a different path to explain the difference between Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and the Chachamim. Ella, in order to reconcile the Mishnah, we're going to have to say that Rabbi Yochanan holds lahachmir, that even a woman should not be able to be misgarish if she becomes a chereshes without her das. And the Chachamim responded why a man is able to be megarish, even though he, right, ein ha'ich yachol legarish. Why shouldn't a man be able to be megarish if he became a cheresh? So that was on the question, a response to the question of Yochanan Nuri, who asked the Chachamim why a man cannot be megarish even without das. And again, the Gemara now is going to make it a switch over. It wasn't that Rabbi Yochanan Nuri was asking that question because he actually held like that. But Ella, Rabbi Yochanan Nuri l'divrei ka'amar lahu. According to your logic, that a woman could receive her get even without a das, why can't the Baal be megarish without a das? But Liddi, Rabbi Yochanan Nuri himself holds, just like a man requires das for gerushin, so too if a woman became a chereshes, she doesn't have das, she's ain't a misgareshes. We need her das. But according to your shita, that a woman who became a chereshes can be misgareshes even without das is maishna ish, isho maishna ish. So why is a man able to? Why is it that a woman is able to be misgareshes even though she's a chereshes, but the man cannot be megaresh if he's a cheresh? And to that, Chacham responded, "And doma ish hamegarish liisha misgareshes." In the case of an isha, she's misgareshes bal korcha. She doesn't need das, and therefore, if she's a chereshes, she can receive her get, and it's a valid get. But an ish, there's no such thing as an ish giving a get without das, against his will. Hey, Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgedo chereshes sheisiyav v'yotze beget, Amar Rava may do so. Shall Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgedo. We could derive a conclusion halach l'maisa from the testimony of Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgedo, that even in Kedushin Gemurin, we don't need a das or isha for gerushin. And that's going to give me a conclusion for an isha pikachas. In what case? Omar Li'edim, a man says to two witnesses, and the woman is not around. Ru'u get zeh shani nosein lo. Take a look. This is a get that I am delivering to my wife. The Omar law, and he said to his wife, who she was a bikachas at the time of the Nisin, he fools her. He says, "This is a document. This is a bill of loan," and she picks up the get, and lo and behold, it turns out to be a get. According to Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgedo, the get is going to be chal. Why? Because we don't need das ha'isha. Milo Omar Rabbi Yochanan Gudilo lo be'inin daita. Just like in the case of a chereshes, Rabbi Yochanan Nuri's testimony was that they accepted and validated the get. Achanami lo be'inin daita. So to here, even though she thinks mistakenly she's been fooled, but she was duped into thinking she's getting a shtarchov. So what? She's megreshes and we don't need a das. The Gemara says pshita. Why did I need Rava to tell me this chiddush? The time I would have said Mida Amar La Kinsi Shtarchov Zeh Bitule Batle, maybe by declaring in front of the Duedim that this shtar is not a shtar get, but rather shtar chov. He means to be mevatel the get, and get has to be written lishma, so he can be mevatel lishma in the get. Kamash Malan, no, he's not being mevatel the get. Isa de Batle, if he wanted to be mevatel the get by telling and declaring that this is shtar chov, he shouldn't have declared it in the presence of the isha. That's secondary. He should have declared it in the presence of the eidim. The eidim avikomalu. Umidlo omar li'edim lo batli v'lo mid. If he didn't say it to the witnesses that this get is not a get l'chain berishin, then it's not hachi. So why did he say it to the woman? Machmas kisufa hu dekamar lahu. He's embarrassed to tell her that this is a get. Rav Yitzchak bar Bisna irachsu le maftechei dvei midrash. They lost the keys to the beis medrash. Pershus Rabbah, somewhere in the middle of a public domain, and it's Shabbos. Also, he came in front of Rav Pidos to ask him for an eitzah. Is there any way that we could bring these maftechos to the beis medrash, which the Rishus HaYochid, on Shabbos?